The Prenup Chronicles, Love, Money, and 2.5%. Part 2. 4. Seeking Advice. Emma sat cross-legged on Priya's couch, the half-empty bottle of rosé warming between them, and a bowl of untouched, stale popcorn forgotten on the table. The apartment smelled like lavender candles and bad decisions, the kind of place where secrets felt safe. Priya scrolled through Emma's phone, eyebrows furrowed. Okay, let me get this straight. Jack drops a prenup on you out of nowhere, and now there's a sunset clause? What even is that? Some kind of vampire thing? Emma groaned, pressing her face into a throw pillow. Worse, it's a legal loophole that kicks in after a certain time, and Liam's been texting Jack nonstop about it. They're hiding something. Priya's expression darkened. Liam's a snake. Remember when he tried to con Jack into that NFT scam? What's his angle this time? I don't know, Emma admitted, voice tight. But Jack's been different. Secretive. He bought flowers twice and lied about where he was. And then there's this infidelity writer. Priya sat up straight. Whoa, back up. Infidelity writer? As in cheating? Emma swallowed hard. I saw an email on Jack's phone. Liam said something about it being urgent, but Jack deleted it before I could read it. Priya exhaled sharply. Okay, first, you need your own lawyer, someone not in Jack's pocket. Second, you need to find out exactly what's in that sunset clause. Because if Liam's behind it, it's bad. Across town, Jack sat in his brother's glass-walled office, watching the city lights flicker like distant warning signs. Liam leaned back in his leather chair, swirling a glass of scotch. You're overthinking this, he said. The sunset clause is standard. It protects you if she tries to pull a fast one. Jack's jaw tightened. And the infidelity writer? Liam smirked. Insurance. Jack bristled. Against what? Emma's not like that. Liam sighed like he was explaining basic math. Jack, love is great until it's not. You've got a company to protect. A legacy. Don't let emotions make you a cautionary tale. Jack's phone buzzed. A text from Emma. We need to talk. He hesitated, then typed back. Can it wait? I'm in a meeting. Liam watched him with a knowing grin. That her? Jack nodded, shifting in his chair. Good. Liam took a slow sip. Keep her at arm's length until the papers are signed. It's better that way. Jack wasn't so sure. That night, Emma sat in her car, staring at the dimly lit office building. She'd spent hours researching lawyers, and the one she'd finally picked had a reputation for winning. The firm's website flaunted a 98% success rate. But the reviews? Ruthless. Saved me millions. Wouldn't wish them on my worst enemy. Her heart pounded as she stepped inside. A receptionist led her to a sleek conference room where a woman in a black suit waited. The nameplate on the table read, Victoria Kane, Esquire. Victoria extended a hand. Ms. Chen, I hear you're in need of a shark. Emma shook her hand, pulse racing. I need to know what I'm up against. Victoria's lips curved into a smile, but her eyes stayed cold. Let's start with the sunset clause. Because if it's what I think it is, you're not just fighting for your future. You're fighting for your freedom. Back at their apartment, Jack stared at the bouquet of peonies on the counter, the card still crumpled in his pocket. His phone buzzed again. Email from Liam. Subject, URGENT, sunset clause, final draft. Body, Jack, we need to move fast. If she finds out about the trust fund conditions, this whole thing falls apart. Call me. Jack's hands shook as he typed, What aren't you telling me? Before he could hit send, the front door creaked open. Emma stood in the doorway, face pale but eyes burning with determination. In her hand was a folder, Victoria Kane's logo embossed on the front. We need to talk, she said, voice steady. About the trust fund. About Liam. About everything. Jack's stomach twisted. The game had changed. V. The 2.5% clause. The conference room was freezing, the kind of cold that seeped into Emma's skin, making her wonder if it was intentional. She sat stiffly across from Jack, her fingers gripping the armrest of her chair. To her left, his lawyer, Greg, clicked to the next slide of his meticulously polished PowerPoint. The title on the screen glowed like a warning. Proposed 2.5% per year provision. Greg's voice dripped with practiced charm, the kind you'd hear on a late-night infomercial. Think of it as a loyalty program, he said, flashing a salesman's smile. For every year of marriage, Emma receives 2.5% of Jack's total net worth. After 20 years, she's entitled to half. A win-win. Emma's gaze flickered to Jack, then back to the screen. 2.5% per year. 50% after 20 years. It sounded fair, almost romantic in a twisted spreadsheet kind of way, but something about the way Greg said it made her stomach churn. She narrowed her eyes. What's the catch? Greg's smile faltered for half a second before he recovered. Catch? No catch. It's about incentivizing a lasting partnership. Jack shifted beside her, his knee brushing hers under the table. It's not about distrust, Em. It's about protecting both of us. If we're together for 20 years, you deserve half. But if things don't work out, Emma's stomach twisted. I walk away with nothing. Not nothing, Greg corrected. Too smooth, too quick. You'd still receive the percentage for the years you were married. It's more than most prenups offer. Across the table, Emma's lawyer, Victoria, leaned forward. Her sharp nails tapped against the wood in slow, deliberate beats. Let's cut the sugarcoating. The 2.5% clause is a gamble. If the marriage ends before 20 years, Emma walks away with a fraction of what she'd get under standard divorce law. And if Jack's net worth drops, so does her share. Jack tensed. That won't happen. The company's stable, and I've got a solid financial plan. Victoria gave him a razor-sharp smile. Plans change, and so do people. Silence fell, thick and heavy. Emma turned to Jack, searching for the man who had proposed under the old oak tree, laughing as he held out a ring. Instead, all she saw was a stranger in a perfectly tailored suit. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Can we have a minute? Greg hesitated, then nodded. Of course, take your time. As the lawyer stepped out, Emma exhaled, trying to steady the storm inside her. Is this really what you want? She asked, forcing herself to meet Jack's eyes. To put a price tag on our marriage? Jack reached for her hand. She pulled away. It's not about the money, Em, he said softly. It's about fairness, about making sure we're both protected. She let out a sharp breath. Protected from what? From each other? Before he could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. A text from Priya. Did you know Jack's been meeting with Liam's lawyer? The one who specializes in offshore accounts? Emma's blood ran cold. Her eyes snapped to Jack, who was staring at his own phone, his face pale, her pulse hammered. What? Jack hesitated, then turned the screen toward her. Email from Liam. Subject, URGENT. Sunset Clause Revision. Body. Jack, we need to adjust the 2.5% clause. The trust fund conditions require it. Call me ASAP. Emma's breath hitched. Trust fund conditions? She forced herself to stay calm. Jack, what trust fund conditions? Jack opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the door swung open. Greg strode in, his polished mask finally cracking. He held up a document, his grip tight. We have a problem. Emma's chest tightened. What kind of problem? Greg hesitated. Then he dropped the bomb. If the marriage ends before 20 years, not only does Emma lose her share, but Jack forfeits the entire trust fund to Liam. The room spun. Emma felt like she'd been punched. She turned to Jack, her voice barely a whisper. You knew about this? Jack's face was ashen. Number, I swear I didn't. But doubt had already taken root. And suddenly, the 2.5% clause wasn't a prenup. It was a trap. Sixth, Emma's reaction. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that made Emma's skin prickle, like the calm before a storm. Jack sat across from her at the kitchen table, the 2.5% clause printed neatly in front of him. The numbers glared up at her. 2.5% per year, 50% after 20 years. Like a math problem she hadn't signed up to solve. It's not about us, Jack said, his voice steady, but his hands fidgeted with the edge of the paper. It's about making sure we're both protected. If we're together for 20 years, you get half. That's fair, right? Emma stared at him, her chest tightening. Fair? You're reducing our marriage to a spreadsheet. What's next? A pie chart for how much you love me. Jack flinched but didn't back down. It's not like that. This is just practical. It's about clarity. Clarity? Emma's voice rose, sharp and brittle. Or control? Because right now it feels like you're holding all the cards, Jack. You've got the company, the trust fund, the lawyers, and I've got what? A percentage of your life? Jack leaned forward, his eyes pleading. That's not true. This is about us. About making sure we're both taken care of, no matter what happens. No matter what happens. Emma's fingers curled into her palms. You keep saying that. Like it's inevitable. Like you're already planning for us to fail. Jack's face fell. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She demanded, slamming her hands onto the table. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're more worried about your money than our marriage. The words hung between them, thick as smoke. Jack looked away, his jaw clenched. For a moment, Emma thought he might argue, might fight for them the way he used to. But instead, he reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen. I'm trying to do the right thing, he said quietly, but you're making it impossible. Emma's breath caught. Am I, or are you just realizing that I'm not going to sign away my future without a fight? Jack's phone buzzed, the sound sharp in the silence. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting. Guilt? Fear? Emma couldn't tell. Who is it? She asked, her voice low. No one, he said quickly, shoving the phone into his pocket. But Emma had already seen the name, Liam. Her stomach churned. What does your brother want now? More clauses? More conditions? Jack stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This isn't about Liam. This is about us. About our future. Our future? Emma shot back, her voice breaking. Or yours. Jack opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Call me ASAP. I found something you need to see. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. She looked up at Jack, who was pacing now, his grip tightening around his phone. What aren't you telling me, Jack? He stopped pacing, his back to her. Nothing, it's just complicated. Emma exhaled a laugh, humorless. Complicated. That's your answer for everything these days. She grabbed her phone and headed for the door, her mind spinning. Jack called after her, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Because if there was one thing she'd learned, it was that Jack's complicated always had a way of blowing up in her face. And this time, she wasn't sticking around to clean up the mess.